Welcome back to the Context Coaching Podcast. We are joined today by Trey Brown, head football coach, associate director of admission at Phillips Andover Academy in Massachusetts. Coach, thanks for taking the time to get on and chop it up today.
Oh man, what a pleasure, man. I appreciate you taking the time to get me on this call. We've been playing phone tag for a long time. What a great just opportunity to be here. I appreciate you. Appreciate all that you're doing as well. So
Well, let's dive in here. Take us through your background as a coach. How'd you get into this? What was the first job you got? How did you shift between jobs, if at all? What were the steps along the way, even going back to your high school experience? Because I know that's a big part of what took you out there to begin with, but would love to hear that story.
yeah, man. I've born and raised in Livingston, California, right in the valley. Went to middle school there, public middle school, public high school. Was fortunate enough to have both Matt Winton, Scott Winton, and have some guys in my corner. They both coached me, seen me develop my journey at Livingston, and they were like, "Hey, man, you should think about." I had a friend that had me think about coming out east. They got these schools out here, prep schools, where you can have a post grad year and another year of high school to develop, mature, but also just get more exposure. Because I had gotten to decent Division III schools out of Livingston, wanted better, wanted more for myself. Visited these schools. Andover happened to be one, but visited Exeter, Deerfield, Cho, all these schools out east, and they're incredible. I would encourage anyone, to check them out, Google them. It's pretty special. It's pretty different.
And
Was
really
fortunate.
quickly, before you continue, for those of you
Yeah.
that are listening that have no idea what he's talking about, there are these things called boarding schools. And it's not for wayward youth, it's for people that are looking for a certain situation. I work at the largest one west of the Mississippi here in California, but the biggest collection of them is where he is at in the Northeast, where you throw a rock, you hit one of them. And he works at the Harvard and Yale of boarding schools as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I wouldn't have said that myself, but yeah, Andover is up there, always ranked one of the best private independent schools in the nation, if not in the world. And it's a really special place. But yeah, I was fortunate enough to come here, get admitted, come to Andover, where I was hoping to play basketball, football, baseball. Super excited, chomping at the bit. I was an ex-running back. First carry of the preseason, man, tore my ACL. Couldn't believe it. I was in shock, disappointed. And then the day I had surgery, ended up snowing 12 to 14 inches. My surgery got delayed 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours. And in that moment, I was like, this is the dumbest decision I've ever made. I was like, what the hell was I thinking? Looking back on it, it was a blessing in disguise, man. I think the people here and at any school, any private independent school, boarding school, day school, they take care of you as a whole person. And so it was really cool to see people at Andover, whether it was my house counselors, teachers, other students, they were like, hey, what can we do? How can we help you? What can we do? And long story short, man, my house counselor was my go-to adult. He slid this paper across from me after my surgery, and I flipped it over, and it was the chances of going to the NFL. He was like, Trey, chances were slim, but you probably weren't going to make it anyways. But also, you're here at Andover because of who you are, not because what you can do on the sports field. He was like, we read your application. You were class president. You did community service. All of your essays, they were about your family and community and what that meant to you. Be that person. And at Andover, I heard that and I took that as a challenge. Ended up being basically the school babysitter. I babysat the children of faculty members. I did a lot of community service, really applied myself. That all goes to now, long story short, that's my boss, Jim Ventry. And it was crazy. Full circle, he would tell me, we're going to get you back here, Trey. I was like, F no, nah, it's too cold. Tore my ACL. This place, I don't want to have it be part of my memory, but I'm here at Andover now in my ninth year as the head football coach. I work in admissions as well and an academic advisor. So everyone here wears different hats, but for me, it's special. It's a privilege to be not just at one of the best schools in America, but more importantly, to hold this role as a head football coach and be a mentor to all these young men. And if you would have asked me, I ended up majoring in economics, minoring in math. I thought I was going to go to Wall Street, do it big, make big bucks. But I did a couple internships at Bowdoin, where I went to college at, and I ended up being like the special coordinator for athletics. And I would give kids tours, work with the football coaches, and basically help them with recruiting. I was like, I like this. I can see myself doing this. Never would have thought I would have been a career in it, but I'm so grateful, so happy that I am. After Bowdoin, I did go back home to Andover where I work. I missed home. I missed home a lot, man. That first year, I actually worked at Foster Farms. If everybody gets chicken in the valley, it comes usually from Foster Farms. I was there as a supervisor.
Livingston. You went back to Livingston after boating.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, went back to Livingston for a year and was ended up being a supervisor there at a poultry plant. And it was I learned how to work with people. I worked with parents of kids that I went to high school with. I was their boss, but I was like, man, I miss the East Coast and I want to find myself back out there. So I ended up applying to different schools. And in the middle of applying, my boss now called me, was like, Trey, we don't know what you're doing, but we got an opening here for you. Leon, he's the guy that was the head coach here at Andover. He's retiring in 2 years, but also we got a job in admissions, your story, who you are. We can see you being that person. Like, what do you think? 6 days later, I'm on Andover's campus, hired, and happened just like that. And that's a little bit of my journey, but man, I think that what I'm missing and not highlighting on is the people that helped me on this journey. And that's, like I said, Matt Winton, my coach, my baseball coach, came to visit me when I had my ACL injury, but also my friends and family, man. They kept me grounded, even though they were thousands of miles away. My boys, my guys, we got a group chat, and they're always just checking in. Even though 1,000 miles from home, that's home right there for me. The people that helped me become who I am, and then also mixing that in with my years here at Andover, it's a privilege and an honor to be an Andover alum, but more importantly, a Livingston alum, a Livingston product. And so I'm always trying to find ways to get some of those guys, those people, those dudes from the valley, get them out to Andover and maybe follow a similar path or have that opportunity.
Love that. When you first got back there, you said he was going to retire in 2 years. So were you assistant for 2 years before you became the head coach?
Yeah, I was an assist. I honestly, he said that my first year, and I was like, oh, this guy's just playing around. I'm like, I'm not ready to be a head coach. I don't know. But sure enough, 2 years he retired. That was in the big plans going through it, the hiring process. It was like talked about, but in my mind, I was like, 4 years, 5 years, get some tutelage, but 2 years, and now I've been the head coach for the last 7.
Okay, last 7 head coach. Okay,
Yeah.
and 2 before that. Okay, really quickly, I think we should note for the listeners as well that the reason you were excited to get back to the East Coast is because you're in the Valley and you weren't on the coast like I am. But that's not neither here nor there. Let's talk a little bit about you get back, you're an assistant coach, you're working through that, and then all of a sudden you become the head coach. And what I'm always curious about, I started this a long time ago during COVID, actually, thinking about my coaching staff collectively, because at schools like ours, you are going to be in the co-curricular. You are going to do something. And you might get asked to coach thirds bocce ball, and you're like, I've never played that. And so, don't worry, you'll figure it out. And so part of this was like to create this digital database of mentorship for people who may not have the same network that we do, where you can call Scott and be like, hey man, I'm dealing with this. What do I do? They might be thrown into the fire and they just got to the school and their coaching background is I used to run marathons and the ADs, I don't care. Like you figure it out. And so anyway, all of that to say, when you took over as the head coach, what did you realize right away that you needed to figure out? And I say that because you played for a guy that's an AD, right? And you played for some guys that know what they're doing. You worked for a guy that had done it for a long time. He mentored you. He got you ready, but you're never ready. So what are the things that you can now offer our colleagues that are maybe getting into this for the first time, that have maybe moved over one chair and it's just the fire hose? So what are some of those, if you remember back 7 years ago, where you were just like, ah?
100%, man. I think, yeah, 7 years ago, I was like, I was not ready. You think you're ready, you're not ready. You're not ready. And man, I think advice for me, man, was really leaning on other people that did the same thing we're doing as coaches, but weren't a part of Andover, right? If I'm trying to lean on these other, because I was grandfather coaching my coaching staff, and I didn't bring on any of my own guys, and that's probably for most cases, but they're going to have their opinions, the way they've done things for the last 20, 30 years. My advice is to have a vision in what you want in terms of culture. And someone once told me, don't try to do too much. Do what you do well and keep it simple before you start expanding the playbook and whatnot. And I didn't take that advice. I should have. I didn't year one. From there on out, really figuring out what you want this to be. I think I was fortunate enough to have a great assistant coach on my staff, and he was like, called him, his name is Chip Dunn, and he just retired this year, wide receivers coach. I called him Young Dunn, and he would always pull me aside and say like, hey, I see you. I know you respect everybody else, but this is your program, right? When we win, hey, it's because of everybody. When we lose, it's on you. What do you want your program to be? What do you want your legacy to be? And really taking that to heart and really thinking about the culture, the standards you set. before diving into X's and O's. I think that it's just very important to get that, establish the culture standard, and then, like I said, get outside perspectives. If you get perspective from inside, it's going to be a soundboard. It's going to be a bunch of ideas with zero perspective of outside. Whereas, someone like Scott, like Matt, like Brian Alvarez, he's my guy. He's on the Livingston coaching staff. He's just, hey, from what I'm hearing, what you're saying, think about this. Or I watched a little bit of your film. I seen this, and it's really cool to have zero type of people aren't going to give you bullshit. That's what I'm trying to say. There's no gray area. They're not going to tell you what you want to hear. They're not going to tell you what they think you want to hear. I think that that's really important to me is establish the culture, the standard that you want for your team. Keep it simple in terms of have a strong foundation, and then have people that you can go to that aren't in your coaching staff on in addition to that.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting. That's where you landed. I'm working through something right now with our boys coach, who's a former player of mine who did a 10-year tour in college, came back. He's the dean at the middle school, really good at everything he does, and is in year 3 and trying to find what you talked about. Like, what's your identity? What do you believe in? When you win, it's everybody else. When you lose, it's on you. And what's the hill you're going to die on? And ultimately be cool with that. And so what you just said is find people outside of your circle, because played for me, he's always part of my staff, other staffs, and ultimately, like, how are we getting other voices in this? And so I just actually connected him with another coaching mentor of mine and said, hey, can you watch this film? Can you do a self scout, write this up? Can I connect you with him so that he's getting another perspective that may be better at guiding him than I am? Because ultimately, like, elite culture builder has run into some stuff with injuries and illness, has not had a chance to have the whole team because we don't get to practice the way the neighborhood school does, but that's who we're playing. And so it's just like this. How do we help get a different perspective, like you just said, that's going to validate the things you're doing well and call out the things that maybe need to be improved on? And so I think it's super valuable advice and didn't expect that. So that's awesome. That's where you landed right away. Don't try to do too much. Keep it simple. I say that all the time. Simplicity wins. I'm 25 years into this. I do one thing on defense. I do one thing on offense. And it's like when I was a first year coach, it's like, we're going to do all this stuff and we're going to not be good at anything. It's like, how did you get there? How quickly did you get there? And why are you there now? What have you learned through that journey and evolution of your own philosophy?
Man, damn, that's a good question. How did we get there? Trial and error, man. Trial and error. So, like I said, when I took over as the head coach, I was the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and head coach. And I was like, what the hell am I doing? I was trying to do everything, like you said, was ended up doing so much and not doing it well. Find your identity. So I think being able to, once again, rely on people and say, and also just knowing your personnel, your kids, what's easy to them. So I think with us here at Andover, we got really smart kids, right? They get it, they understand stuff, but also with that comes they got so many questions and something simple. Just go there, go there. What if this goes? Hey, shut the hell up. Go there. I said step left. Don't step right. Just step left. And just being understanding like, hey, I got to talk to these kids differently. It wouldn't be the same if I'm talking to kids from Livingston, right? They really want to know the ins and outs of everything. Really, like you said, just settling really early on. Hey, here are 4 run plays. We're going to use the route tree and we're going to mirror stuff when we go 4 wide. We're going to keep it really simple, really vanilla, right? On defense, we're going to either go cover 1 or cover 3. And kids, they got good at it. They got really good at it, did it really well. And so now we were able, as we go out, like, all right, now we can introduce cover 2, cover 4. But I think that it took so much time. And I'm finding as well, every year, different kids, they can't, not every kid can go cover 2. We don't have the athletes that can cover half the field sometimes, right? And so being able to switch things up based on the personnel you have. But it took a lot of just reflecting, man. The amount of film that I just watched in the off season, being able, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Like, why the hell did I call that play? Why did we run that? We ran this play. We didn't practice that at all. Or we practiced this, you nailed it down and we ran it twice. What are we doing? So being able to self-reflect and really be honest with yourself is important. And also having my coaching staff now they're the guys that I chose, and us being on the same page has been extremely effective. And so I think that it took, long story short, man, it took I feel like 4 years. And then the pandemic hit. When I thought I pulled it all together, pandemic hit. And so I really feel like I got 2 probably good years where I can say, hey, I'm doing a good job underneath my belt. Even then, we're only able to rack up 2 wins each season. And we can't close out games that could go either way. They don't go our way sometimes. But at the end of the day, I'm happy to say, hey, we had a great plan. We gave the kids the plan. They played their asses off. We didn't get it done, and I wish we can have that one back. We can't. We got to move on to the next. And so being able to be reflective, but you can't live in the past. Life continues. Next game is up 20 in 7 days. So,
Well, and again, sometimes I think what people forget about is at the end of the day, you can have all the plans that you want, but if you don't have the Jimmys and Joes, it don't matter. And even then, you can craft things to meet your talent level, etc. But in your situation, especially in the Founders League, it's not like you get to schedule your own games. It's like, this is who you're playing.
just who you're
Like you
playing.
don't get to pick like I do with our football program. It's like I get two that we get to pick at least. The other
Mhm.
eight we're getting handed, but we get two that we can figure out. And so
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it. And then I think also what you said was informative was speaking to kids at our schools and coaching them is so different. They're the most coachable kids in the world. And at the same time, there there are moments where you reflect back and it's you're too smart for your own good.
Yep.
And you, I think, hacked it. And I'm going to go to practice today and take what you have to heart. And it's maybe instead of me telling my kids, you know what, just do what I'm telling you, maybe I spend some time and get to the level 7 why, and then I'll be better at it. Because I
Right.
don't want to take the time out of practice to answer all 72 questions. It's just go do it.
Yeah.
Stop thinking about it. And I'm going to try your approach. Like maybe that'll work because who knows? Maybe that clears up some of the mess that's going on in their head. Because I've never really thought of it in that term where if you get to the second, third, fourth, fifth layer for them, because they can manage that, maybe then they can figure it out on their own. Who knows? What's the best thing you do in your program? And by that, if you were to leave tomorrow and the Livingston job came up and you missed the Valley and you wanted to go back, what would you bring with you? That wouldn't be personnel dependent, that wouldn't be kid dependent, but it's just this is so transformational on our culture that I would do this anywhere.
I think my intentionality, man, with these kids, like creating connections with each kid, knowing not just their name, but like, hey, I know your sister's name, I know your dad's brother's name, I know you, and they know I can look them in the eye. I think when kids know that you know them and that you care for them, they're gonna give you more on the football field, but also I think that they're gonna be more vulnerable and they're gonna be their best self. And that took a lot of time. Like I said, my first year head coach, being head coach, offense coordinator, defensive coordinator, I didn't really get to know these kids. Mind you, a lot of them are coming for 1 year and they're just trying to get theirs. I'm trying to figure out a game. They never play as a team. And so for me, I've been intentional sitting down, talking with each and every kid, asking, not just asking how you're doing and saying, yeah, I'm good. No, you got to tell me, you can't just use one word, explain it. And so being able to create these connections with these kids, and to me, it is something that is so important today's day and age in general. But I think you're gonna get kids that was like, and I think that's where I really appreciate Matt Winton. Like he really got to know each and every player. He treated us as if we were his kids, and I felt that, and I knew like I wanted to play for this guy. I want to give my all. Whereas if kids don't know that you care for them, why the hell is coach yelling at me? Instead of being like, hey, coach loves me. I know he's yelling at me. He expects more out of me. He's calling me up, not calling me out. Whereas if you don't know them, now you're just getting called out. You're embarrassed. Now you start getting that kind of the lock. You lose the locker room. And so I think for me, I've lost the locker room early on in my career where I can't have that. It doesn't matter if we win or lose. If the locker room is not intact, that never feels good. And so I'm happy. Like I said, I always want to win. I can't wait to have a winning record. Can't wait to have a winning season. But for me, I enjoy, or it's a nice feeling to say, hey, we lost, but our guys, they freaking care about each other. They're not going into the locker room, starting fights, trashing the place. Like they got sportsmanship and they got class, but also they got love for each other. So I think that's something that I want to bring. I would bring to anywhere, any program I join, any team I join.
Yep. And that's what I mentioned when I was talking about my boys coach. That's the part he's elite at. We struggled, and those guys wouldn't leave the gym till 11 o'clock at night. And it's like, you're having a rough year. Most of the time, guys are like, I'm out of here.
Out of here, yeah.
And it's no, these guys, he had to lock the doors to kick them out. And it's like, how rare is that when you have that good of a culture and you're not winning at the level that people associate with winning? And I think that's a great message to send. And if you're doing that, then at the end of the day, we're trying to grow adults and it's nice to win. I'm sure if you go back through your 7 years of head coaching experience and look at what your guys are doing and how they're showing up as adults, it probably shines a light on what you're really doing behind the scenes. Now, You have a ton of sports on campus, right? You've got kids that are involved because they have to be. And I'm always curious, what have you learned? What have we learned as coaches intentionally? You said intentionality, but watching other teams that aren't other football teams train, practice, do skill development, whatever it might be that you've been able to steal. And I think as we're younger coaches, often our tunnel vision is I can only get better if I call up this football coach over here to tell me how to do football, and we miss the forest for the trees where the tennis coach actually is great at teaching and we haven't bothered to go out there and watch them. So I'm curious, like what you've learned from non-football coaches watching other teams that you've been able to plagiarize and take for yourself.
Yeah, no, that's a wonderful question, man. And I think it's interesting because there's sometimes where I envy those teams, right? I sometimes envy the hockey team, right? You're required to do a sport here, but all the hockey players, they'll do yoga and then they'll have their hockey season and do another dog walking class and still play club. Like there's no club football. And I used to envy that, but I'm like, I love how multifaceted our kids are. You got those football, baseball guys, football, lacrosse, football, basketball, football, track, football, wrestling. So it's not an envy, but I think watching other teams, I watch our field hockey team who is they're so successful. They rank nationally every year. They bring home a title every year. Same can be said for baseball, soccer. And I'm like, what the hell are they doing? I can look over at their practice. They got a beach ball out there. They got costumes on for Halloween. And I think that they do a lot of team bonding stuff that I sometimes feel like I don't got time for that. This is my plan. I got to make sure that, hey, our kids know on third downs, this is what they're doing. That's more important than playing with the volleyball. But I think that I've gotten better at taking a step back and being like, hey, we can still have fun. It doesn't always have to be serious or doesn't always have to be business. And I definitely want to definitely shout out my wife because she's been amazing. She'll bring popsicles on a day like it's a hard practice. And she's like, I think we should do this. I don't got time for that. She's like, I got it. I'll bring them over. She'll wheel over an ice chest. Or hey, I think that you should add fun to practice. Initially, I'm like, I'm on one person. Do you think we have this time? I don't, but I'm like, you know what? Adding in some competition drills, being able to call practice, knowing that hey, I'm going to factor in, we're going to call practice 30 minutes early so we can do all this fun stuff, team bonding, have food at the end. It's going to be worth it. Do I wish we had 30 minutes and we can focus on punt to make sure we don't get blocked or we can pin our guys in the 20-yard line? But sometimes you got to sacrifice that. And I've learned that, like I said, from soccer programs, baseball program, field hockey program, and I'm still learning. I think that's something that I love doing is just always learning from other coaches. And I think that that's something we can get better at here at Andover is as coaches, just discussing what's working, what's not working. And that's why I appreciate about this podcast that you have, being able to have that shared knowledge, being able to take ideas and make them their own.
And to your point, I think I do it, you do it, right? Ultimately, I don't have time. And that's not true. Do you want to make time for it? Where is it on the important versus urgent scale? And I'm sitting here listening to you and I'm thinking about, this is essentially my last practice. And then the kids are going on Christmas break. And I'm sitting here going, I got to cover this. I got to cover this. I got to cover this. And is that more important than maybe taking some time to have them talk about why they matter to each other? And I don't know, like I'm just listening to you thinking about that. We're going off on a Christmas break. It's a perfect opportunity to like maybe put a pin in some things and make people understand that we see each other and that they feel valued. And does that do more to be better at basketball than actually working on an out of bounds play? Who knows? And so I appreciate your take on that. And it's just causing me to think about a few things. All right. What about as a football coach? I asked this of Tyler when I had him on Whitley the other day.
Tyler's good people, man. I love that.
And I asked this of football coaches on occasion, and my coaches look at me like I'm crazy. So as a basketball coach, there are times where, all right, break, let's start practice, 5-on-5, let's go full court. And it's like, when's the last time you played 11-on-11 in practice to start practice? Or ever, right? And my football coach is like, you don't do that. What are you talking about? I'm like, why not? Like, you play football 11-on-11, like, why don't you just go play? You got to do this block, you got to do this, and there's so many things. And I'm like, all right, cool, man, whatever. And then I've also asked this question because I think it's wild. Like, is there ever a time and a place where essentially you could run like conceptual offense, right? All right, we're going to line up all the skill dudes. All know they're just looking at the defense and they're all making the same read and let's see what happens. And you might not do that really in a game, but as a practice tool to maybe evaluate how their minds work, right? It's why did you run the in route when he was playing on the inside leverage, right? Whatever that happens to be. And my coaches look at me like I'm crazy, and I'm like, why not? Shit, try it.
I love that idea, man. It's funny. We talk about this as coaches a lot. So we're fortunate enough to have the great brain of Ernie Adams on our coaching staff. And he's an alum of Andover. And so he's huge. At the Patriots, we never went contact. We never did an 11 on 11, right? And then we got some couple of young bucks like myself, my defensive coordinator, my offensive coordinator. And we're just like, they gotta know what that feels like because that's what's gonna happen on Saturdays, right? That's gonna happen in a game early in the season when we practice on Wednesdays. Tuesday is a huge day. We're doing a bunch of indie work, a bunch of group stuff, and then we'll end with some team on air. But I think Wednesday is like, all right, we're gonna go our starting O versus our starting D as best as we can, and we got 11 plays, and we're gonna take them to the ground and let's go. Let's play. We're gonna do that Saturday for 120, right? So let's see. So I think that we do it early in the season and we get away from it as the season progresses. Hopefully, we don't want anyone getting injured, but that's football. But it's interesting to see. We got different perspectives. I think that our guys, they need to get used to what it feels like on set. We can't protect our guys, overprotect our guys, and they get punched in the mouth and they're shocked. They're deer in the headlights. We didn't practice. I can't get mad at you. I'm mad at myself now because I didn't give you the opportunity to know what that feels like.
But
Yeah,
even on the 11 on 11, like even if it's just like touch and you don't take them to the ground, but it's like the live read component that
yeah.
I
Yep.
don't think any sports get enough. And how do we introduce that? And hell, the other day, our Tuesday game, we I was coming back from the National AD conference. I wasn't there Monday practice. I told our assistants, I said, hey, we're playing 3-on-3 cutthroat and warm-ups.
Yeah.
Like we're not doing layup lines. Let's go. Get out here. Let's go. We just played. And like the other team's probably looking at us like we're crazy because they're doing their traditional stuff. And it's we need reps. Like we need to
Yeah.
steal 10 minutes of reps here. Like, why not? And
Yeah.
so how do we challenge ourselves? How do we think outside the box? And on that, like what's the thing you've done that most people would think you're crazy that you implemented or stole somewhere else? It was just like, yo, this works for us. I don't
Yeah.
know
No,
about y'all, but
no, great question. So I think that what we've done, and once again, having Ernie on our coaching staff the last 2 years, is teaching kids what we think what thud is, right? Because sometimes you go, hey, we're going thud, we're not going full. That's very broad, right? That a lot of kids were like, all right, I'm gonna go all speed, but I'm not gonna take him to the ground. Other kids, I'm gonna let him. And so we teach our kid what is thud, what does that mean? And then we also have a session where we go thud plus, right? We'll go thud, we'll blow the first whistle, right? Defense, let's go. But whoever has the ball carrier, you got to keep driving your feet, go score a touchdown. You got to get used to what it feels like to go drive your feet on contact and keep going. And it's fun, man. It's a hard balance, like I said, because we want to prevent injury. I despise having injuries at practice. Like that's terrible. That's bad coaching to me. But sometimes sometimes you can't avoid it. But
and you have thin rosters where you're at, right? Tyler
at
was
10
talking
rounds,
to
you
me
can't avoid
about
it.
they have 50 dudes.
Yeah.
They practice all together, and then on game days, 20 will peel off and play JV. What's your situation like?
Very similar. So we'll have a whole program. Like we'll have 65 guys, right? But theoretically, we'll suit up 38, 40. Out of those 38 to 40, I realistically 23 are playing, right? And so there's a big drop off. So we got to make sure we're intentional with our practice schedule. This is best on best, right? When we do competition drills, we're not going to put a PG against a ninth grader. And so making sure that we got our best versus best. And when we go team, being able to split JV and varsity, or we got the ones here, ones and twos, threes and fours over there. But I think that like you said, you have to sneak in reps. You got to get live reps in, especially like I said, early in the season. Everyone wants to be a practice warrior when you're going tag off or you're going when it doesn't matter, but what it's going to look like when the bullets are flying. And like I said earlier in my career, I've seen that guys expecting kids to turn it on. It's just unrealistic. It's unfair to expect that from them and then try to yell at them on Saturday or teach. You can't teach that. You got to teach it during the week. You got to teach it early on, not on Saturday.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's hard when you have small teams, right? I'm sure you're talking to Matt back home, and it's like he's not having those same concerns that we're having at our smaller schools where we had 60 guys top to bottom this year. And to your point, of those, we had 24 on the varsity, 18 seniors. Thankfully, 16 of those 18 were like 4-year guys that were bought in and committed and could actually play. And whoa, lo and behold, we were actually really good this year. And it's some years that's not the case, right? You got three dudes and you're trying to
Yeah,
figure it out.
exactly. Cyclical, right? You'll be really good one year. Fuck, I know
Yeah,
these next 2 years are gonna be hurt. They're gonna hurt. You're gonna work.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, let's next question. And I'm gonna ask a question, I'm gonna frame it for you. So what's something you've most recently changed your mind on? And it doesn't have to be about football. Okay. It can be about your day job, it can be about being married, it can be about what you do in your free time, whatever it is. And the reason for this, and you're well aware of this, and I'm sure it's a topic at school all the time, but in our currently deeply polarized society, like people almost discourage you from seeking out dissenting opinion. And where I think we are all at our best is if we're challenging our beliefs and our convictions and trying to figure out if they still hold the truth. And so I'm always curious where people have made intentional shifts in their belief system and changed their mind. I used to be here, and actually now I'm way over here, and here's why.
It's a good question, man. I feel like I wouldn't say change my mind, but I'm growing. I'm growing and it took me a while, man, but I'm growing in delegating. That's something as a head coach, man. I was like, used to be young. I can do all this. I can do all that. And I think I'm not giving my assistant coaches responsibility, autonomy, and giving them responsibility, giving them expectations, and taking a lot off of my plate. And this is like recent. This is like the last 2 weeks, right? Because I'm like trying to get my 2026s, trying to find them a home, but I'm also recruiting at the same time. But I need to talk to my underclassmen that are here, get them prepared on what they need to do this offseason, exit interviews. And I sat down and talked to one of my coaches back home, Brian Alvarez, was like, hey, man, I got these three things. What do you think I need to do? And he was like, you got to take care of your 2026s. For that's you. I know you're not a college, but in the college, what they do in the college is the assistant coaches, they're in charge of recruiting those guys. You're the finisher. You come in and you finish. And it was really cool just to get that because I felt like I spent so much time doing different things and I ended up doing nothing. And I was like, what am I doing? Right. And so now the last just being able to say, I'm focusing on this. I trust you guys. I need you guys to do this. And here's the sheet. I'm gonna check this once a day. You guys update it on when you reached out to these kids, what you're hearing back, and being able just to delegate work. And it makes my work-life balance much easier. And like I said, I think that football is a sport in our school in general. Like it doesn't like they think your season and that's it. This is all year. Like I still got my full-time job. It's actually admissions. This is all extra stuff that not I don't think volleyball is doing the same thing. I don't think lacrosse is I don't care what they're doing. This is what I plan, this is what I do. But I think it's given me, I'm able to sleep at night, able to have quality time with my wife, being able to just have and do life better and instead of just trying to do so many things and not be good at any of them. So that's something that's changed the last 2 weeks. And once again, just perspective from an outside looking in versus I think if I ask someone here, they go, that's your job. And yeah, it's something that's been a huge change for me. And I think once again, trusting my coaches, I think that I wouldn't say a control freak. I like things my way, but like I said, I'm one person.
It's hard. And you mentioned it in your very first year. You were the head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. And you can't do that. And ultimately, the more you are willing to take the time to teach somebody to do what you want, it actually frees you up later. But we're often racing around thinking we don't have time. And that gets in the way of us unburdening ourselves,
Spot
right?
on. Like my first couple, I was like, I'm gonna spend time doing this when I could have. That's wasted time when I could have been doing what I need to be doing. But like you said, like that's working smart, but not working hard.
Yeah. And I think to that point, it becomes like as a basketball coach, right? It's in football, you have an offensive coordinator, you have a defensive coordinator, and in basketball, that's a novelty. Some people do it. And every year I come in and I want to do this, but it's nope, because I want to control the defense and I want to control the offense. So you go and run out of bounds plays. And then I watch that and I'm like, yeah, that sucks. We're not doing that anymore. And so
Yep.
it's like, how do you trust for the sake of trusting? And the other day we played a game and I had some downtime and ultimately I was playing with Chat GPT and putting our analytics in there. And I'm like, hey, take all this data after 6 games and build me a rotation, kind of pre-planned like the NBA does. And we went into our last game and I had a sheet. I gave it to the coach. I said, this is what we're doing. And it was like, ultimately, we stuck to it. There were times I'm looking at it going, God, how much longer is this group going to be in? Can we get the next group in? But it prevented me from like knee jerk making a decision because I was like flustered. And
Yeah.
so ultimately for that, I think you got to try some things and you got to stick with it and you got to be willing to take the lumps and see what you can get out of it. And I
Yeah.
loved what we did last week, or excuse me, on Tuesday, not last week, because going into the game is, yo, all y'all are gonna play. Here's when you're going in. This is what you're doing, and we're gonna roll with it.
Kids
I'm
need
not
that
sure I'm gonna
now.
keep doing it, but it was a
Yeah.
cool experiment.
Yeah, kids love that, man. They need that. I think kids, especially at our schools, they love the clarity. Okay, tell me, I was like, that's not basketball, that's not football. They're not going to tell you, like, hey, we're going to blitz, we're here. But the kids want to know, hey, what are our first 20 plays? I was like, that's not how it works. But in an ideal world, you would hope, but
I've never understood that about the whole concept of a football script. It's like you don't know where you're gonna be after play one.
I don't know. Yep, yep.
All right, whatever. That's a football thing. All right, what else do I want to know? How have you evolved, right, from year one as an assistant to finishing year seven as a head coach? How has your approach to coaching changed? And I don't necessarily mean the X's and O's. If you want to get into that's great. That might be a big part of how it's evolved. But I'm just curious if you look back 9 years ago, right? Here's Trey year one, here's Trey year nine. Here's my evolution, and here's what I can actually speak to in how my approach has changed and why it's changed.
My approach to coaching, man, I think that I'm more cognizant of where kids are at nowadays. I think before I wanted to coach the way I would want to be coached. I'm not playing. I'm 33 years old. I'm not 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. And being able to take a step back, see the kids, but also really relying on our upperclassmen, seniors, being able to like, hey, coach, today is a tough day for us. I know you probably want to run us a little bit. I know you had this plan. Do you think that we can taper back a little bit? And so really understanding, seeing, meeting the kids where they're at, but also I think just practice plan in general, being more flexible. I think that I'm so organized. I'm OCD in that. Okay, we're gonna stay in this indie period for 12 minutes exactly, 45 seconds, and then go to group and do this. And I used to be like that year one, year two, year three. And now I'm just like, hey, I can walk around. Hey, this indie group is going well. Let's keep it going. How much time do you need, coach? I know I see you doing cut blocks. Didn't get as many reps as you need. We're at 11 minutes. You need an extra four. And being able to do that and understand you got to be flexible with your practice plan, with the way you coach. And at the same time, I think that I've recognized that each kid needs to be coached differently. I think I'm fair. I'm a fair coach. I'm a coach you fairly. I know I could tell our middle linebacker, like, hey, that was bullshit. Whereas if I tell my sensitive 10th grade tackle, it's not going to sit well. Now he's in his brain the whole time, and he just missed. He missed the block. He whiffed, and he whiffed again and again. I got to say, hey, I expect more out of you. You got this. You're better than that. Go get the next play. Hey, you got it. I believe in you. But being able to be a fair coach and understand each kid is coached differently is really important. And I think that's hard to do, to coach my coaches on how to do that, because they might not have the same foresight. They might not have the same understanding or relationship with that player. But it's hard, man, because I do coach our kids hard. I want to be very intentional and challenge them. And at the same time, I think there's a line that sometimes we cross, sometimes in football, and we probably shouldn't. It's a hard line to toe, but I think that's something I changed from year one to now.
Yeah, and that's great awareness as a coach because everybody's different. And one thing I always talk about is like you mentioned fair, and it's like fair is not equal. And it's what if you're a kid and you're thinking from that mindset of fairness. One of my other mentors is look, fairness is the mindset of the mediocre. Like at the end of the day, right? You may coach Jimmy different than you coach Pete. And if you're not doing that, you're failing everyone. And so ultimately, you've now figured out how to press certain buttons based on the relationship you have, what you know about that kid, how you're helping them be their best. And if you're not doing that, all of us, then we're missing the boat because everybody needs a little bit different interaction based on who they are and who you are.
Yep. Yep. 100%.
All right, I'm going to wrap with this. As you look at prep school sports and you look at the growth of Andover football and look at the landscape that you're playing against, is there a pathway to sustainably continue to do what you guys are doing and still keep up with the rest of the world that does it completely differently? Because ultimately, right, you guys are super seasonal. You have a very specific schedule to your league, and it's different than what everybody else is doing. And I'm curious as the world shifts it here a little bit, what that looks like in your mind.
Yeah, no. The optimistic optimism in me wants to say, yeah, it's super sustainable, but I think I want to say realistically, but like thinking about working, having my admissions hat on and like knowing what is needed to be admitted into and going against kids that or other kids that go to schools that don't have that same type of standard requirement. It's difficult, man, but I think it's sustainable. I think that it's all about, once again, being intentional with the relationships you have with kids before they get here, but then once they do get here. And I think that as we're talking, other schools and other families, other kids might want a coach that's going to be on them and do all that. And I'm not that guy, I'm not that coach, and that's okay. I think that's okay. But I think long story short, I want to believe it is sustainable. And I think part of that is because of my role in admissions and being able to have colleagues and my boss knowing him and him knowing football. He's an Andover alum. He played football, being able to make sure that we're recruiting or admitting kids that are ninth, 10th, 11th seniors into Andover that are going to be a part of the program, help grow the program, meet the standard. I believe that is sustainable. And right, we play against some dudes that I would discourage even applying to Andover. You got a 2.5. Hey, yeah, I don't think that's a good fit. I know it's not a
It's
good
not
fit.
even just the admissions, though, it's the sustainability and survivability once they're there.
Yeah, once they're there. Yeah, exactly. It's just like you said, not a good match. You'd come if you did get in, I don't think you'd make it week one without struggling academically and then socially. But I think that it is sustainable because of my role in admissions and having the support I do have. And once again, I think the intentionality that I bring and feel and having these relationships and hearing from other families, hey, we chose Andover because of you. We knew our kid was going to be taken care of aside from football. That's what matters. And so I think if I keep being me, keep coaching our coaches being themselves, our players, the program, the culture, the standard, we're going to be just fine.
Good. Love that. Appreciate you coming on. I know we were running around in circles, but I'm glad we finally got on, and I'm looking forward to continuing to evolve our relationship.
Yeah, man. Yeah, appreciate you, man. I think, like I said, what you're doing is simply amazing, man. Being able to be a resource for others and bring people on like myself, hear stories, grow. It's impressive. It's important. I think that it's going to help us grow as adults, as a whole, as coaches, as people. And I appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you.
Awesome. Talk soon, man.